name is Robert Harper. My friends call me RJ. We're filming this today because we think that these stories are great and offer an opportunity to talk about the legacy of Peace Corps. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Guatemala, and I thought a lot about what my story would be like, and I think it'll be some like the sort of journey that we end up after having done Peace Corps. Because I think that my story may benefit those people who are in the audience who have an idea that they might want to do the Peace Corps, aren't really sure what they're getting themselves into, and you had some gentlemen talk about how important it was for them that the Peace Corps experience led them to so many other things in their lives. So my story is for you guys, right? That are in college, not making any money, right? Trying to figure out where you got to go. You've got student loans to think about. They're offering this opportunity to be a volunteer where you're not going to make a lot of money. And you got to think about that, because that was me, right? I went to Brown University as an undergraduate. I studied economics and history. And while I was there, I took some sort of art classes at the Rhode Island School of Design. Had loans, worked on college. And the Peace Corps was an option that I kind of considered, but I had to weigh like some options. Should I go get a job in New York City and sit in a cubicle for 2 years before I applied to grad school? Do I go into the Peace Corps where I'm going to be making very little money potentially, but has a big upside? And so for me, I weighed that very heavily. And one of the deciding factors was that a friend of mine had gone into the Peace Corps a year before my graduation, and she was sending me all of these incredible pictures, right, of things that she was doing in country, and that really influenced me a lot as to the decision I was going to make, because I felt like, you know, going to New York City and sitting in a cubicle for 2 years did not look like what I was looking at those pictures, right? So I had to weigh out like the opportunities for what the Peace Corps was going to do for me as a career versus an opportunity to potentially go work for a bank. And I chose to go into the Peace Corps for a number of reasons, all of which I don't regret whatsoever. So I was in Guatemala, and when I applied to the Peace Corps, as I was telling some people earlier, you have to go through this very lengthy interview process where they do your applications, and you have to go through all the health screenings, and they determined with me that I had to have all of my wisdom teeth pulled. But I found that information out like a week before going to my training session. So they immediately called me up and said, you know what, we're going to fly you to DC. We have some medical specialists that are going to remove all of your wisdom teeth on the same day. And then we're going to fly you to Guatemala where you're going to be with the family. So it takes, you know, being a trooper, right, you know, to be a Peace Corps volunteer. I did it. I made it through. I served in Guatemala. I lived in a community on the east coast of Guatemala in a small rural community called Livingston. And it's about an hour's boat ride from Belize and another hour's boat ride from Honduras. And I worked in small business development, as well as also doing some educational projects. I had a very successful chicken project while I was there. And I had to bring the chickens from the Capitol on the bus, the chicken bus that everybody knows about, right? If you've been a Peace Corps volunteer, that's one of the most incredible experiences you have, is that you have to take a 10-hour bus ride with everybody from the community, and it's goats on the top, wrapped up tightly, and it's chickens on the back, and it's, you know, like... Sorry?
Under the seat.
Under the seat, right? I had one situation for a friend of mine who was a Peace Corps volunteer when she was in an African country, and evidently, like, you know, her big experience on the bus had been that there were all of these men in their traditional gear, and evidently, like, you go naked under your gear, so she had to sort of sit, you know, on this bus, you know, with all of these men, you know, sort of just very comfortable with themselves, you know, on the bus for 2 hours in their traditional gear, and she found it very disturbing, but actually very funny. Anyway. So I say that because I encourage everybody to think about the Peace Corps, right? And more importantly, I think you should do the Peace Corps. I did it right out of college, and I don't think that I probably would have been able to do it had I gone on and worked for a bank and then tried to do something else. And one of the great things about the Peace Corps for me, because I live here in Jersey City, was Peace Corps put me in a room with a lot of other people who had great skill sets, in particular areas of environmental advocacy. And in Guatemala, one of the big things that's very problematic in that country is deforestation. If you know anything about Guatemala, it's the Tikal is there, all the ruins of Tikal. There's this large rainforest that's being decimated by development. So environmentalism is very important in that country, and for me, environmentalism didn't really resonate with me, initially. So having worked with so many other people in the Peace Corps that helped me to appreciate, the importance that we take into consideration the issues of environmentalism here. Having returned to the United States after having been a Peace Corps volunteer, I had opportunities here in Jersey City to do a lot of environmental work. And I think about that a lot because a big part of my interest in going to the Peace Corps is I wanted to do good things in other countries. And what I have come to find out is here in Jersey City, we have a lot of big environmental problems ourselves here, right? And so what happened is about 15 years ago, and I've been very active with the Peace Corps since I've come back. I'm currently a returned Peace Corps volunteer, and I'm on the board of the New Jersey Returned Peace Corps Volunteer Organization. I'm a filmmaker by trade, so that's why I'm always filming stuff for people because they get good video, And here in Jersey City, if it had not been for the Peace Corps, I think what's happened here in Jersey City is something that is pretty amazing. And I'm talking about this because I think it goes back to the idea of what did the Peace Corps do for you, the sort of trail that we end up on. And in Jersey City, chromium is a very big issue in the city, and it's all over the United States, but it's really, in Jersey City in particular, it's very bad. And in Jersey City, up on Society Hill and over by Garfield Avenue, we have the two largest chromium contaminated sites on the planet. And they identified 1.5 million tons of toxic waste over by Society Hill, right? And the company sued, the people in the community sued, Honeywell, and got a $700 million settlement to try to clean up their community. And what we found out over in the area that I live in is that unlike the 1.5 million that they had across town, the second largest contaminated site was in Jersey City, and it was 1 million tons. So I say that because Peace Corps allowed me the opportunity to understand how important it is that one person can make a difference in a community. And in our community, we decided, after we realized how contaminated parts of Jersey City were, that we were going to sue the company as well. This company called PPG Industries. They make paint. They're from Pittsburgh. And initially trying to be a community organizer to get people to recognize this, we had very difficult times getting traction in the communities because environmentalism, sometimes people are like, I gotta pay my bills, right? I don't know this whole thing over there, I don't really know a lot about that. So my Peace Corps experience informed me on how to be a community activist, how to organize people that were from disparate communities to think about things that are very important. So I thank the Peace Corps, right? And I think Jersey City owes a Peace Corps a very big round of applause because in our case, we also sued this multinational, it's PPG Industries. They make about $14 billion a year in sales of paint. A lot of your cars are painted with their stuff, but they're a terrible company. And we sued them in federal court in 2007, and we, for our community, also got a $600 million settlement that, for the first time ever, in Jersey City, removed 1 million tons of toxic waste in a residential community here. So it was a very big deal for us because had it not been for the Peace Corps, where I had to be the one person in the community that I thought had to stand up and try to put together a project, for us in the community, particularly here in Jersey City, that's resulted in a whole wave, right, of cleanup in a community, even here in America, that is predicated on the Peace Corps accepting me into their community to be able to do some great things even back here in the United States. Thanks.